afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by myself, Anastasia Lloyd-Wallace, Head of Insights at Retail Doctor Group, and our CEO, Brian Walker.
Hi, Anastasia. Great to be here, and thanks everyone for joining us for our work on the future of Australian retail 2025 and beyond. And for those who are in our community and who know us more broadly, we continually bring out retail consumer insights, white paper studies, and this is another example of that work. So we hope you find it beneficial. And if you're thinking of your strategy work coming into this next year and beyond, don't hesitate to give us a call. Thanks, Anastasia.
Fantastic. So in today's session, we're going to talk you through some of the trends and predictions that we've got for 2025 in terms of retail and consumers. This is our most recent white paper that you might have seen available for download from retaildoctor.com.au. There's a much fuller paper to download if you are interested in reading a little bit more. So today we're going to talk you through what are some of the predictions that we're seeing, what's going on in the market, and this is based off our own research. So at Retail Doctor Group, within our Insights division, we conduct regular research into consumers, we conduct regular market research into retail trends and predictions, and generally our own work that we do throughout the year with our clients and our global partners, Abeltoft Group, to really understand what are we seeing through the network, through retail, and through the lens of the consumers. So we're going to start by just giving you a really brief overview of the 12 trends that we have predicted for 2025. Now, some of these trends are long-standing trends that have been in retail for quite a while, and we don't see them slowing down. We see them sticking around or even coming back with a vengeance in 2025. And then there are some new trends that we've seen develop, and we are predicting will take over and will be the focus for retailers and consumers. So the first of those trends is the human element in retail. So one of the aspects that we've definitely seen on the rise these last few years is consumers wanting to engage with people. They know they can shop online if they were looking for that transactional experience, particularly if they're shopping for value. But one of the things that they enjoy about a retail store is that engagement with people, and retailers really understanding how they can put that investment in and create this engagement, because at the end of the day, all of our consumers are humans, they're people, they're driven by emotions, and it's these emotions that make them want to connect. So we'll delve into each of these trends in a little bit more detail as we go through. So trend number 2, value shopping. And this is something that we're definitely seeing is that value equation. Now, we're not talking the lowest price, we are talking the value equation. And we've seen this value equation shift for consumers. What's important to them and what they're willing to pay for really has changed in the last 12 months. And we're definitely seeing this return of shoptimism. So for anyone that's heard us talk about that in the past, this was really big in 2020, going into 2021, and we've seen that return through the cost of living crisis. Number 3 is advanced loyalty. So if you were with us last year, we released our customer loyalty white paper. If you haven't read that yet, it's really still quite strong and powerful, available on retaildoctor.com.au. And consumers are more loyal than they ever have been. However, they do have higher expectations. And that's where the concept of advanced loyalty, what do they expect from a loyalty program? What do they expect in return from retailers for their loyalty? So moving on to trend number 4, we can really see that consumers value their time differently. And one of the things that we've talked about in previous years is time being a currency. So consumers are willing to pay more. What we're seeing now, even more so, really driven by these younger Gen Z consumers who are now really large purchasing power, is this impatient consumer. They want everything, they want it immediately. We've seen this with the rise of same-day delivery, and we're seeing this in a lot more forms across all retail. So from a retailer's perspective, it's really understanding where are those friction points and what can be improved, because we have around 3 seconds to keep our consumers engaged. And if there are points of friction at any point of that journey, whether it's in store or online, we are losing them a lot quicker than we ever have before. Subconscious commerce. So this almost links to trend 4 in that this is utilizing AI and all of the technology that's now available to predict what consumers are wanting before they even realize. So we're seeing this a lot with the rise of subscriptions. So really predicting when you're going to run out of toilet paper, when you're going to run out of toothpaste, and you're not even having to therefore then make those purchases. But we're also seeing this in the ability to understand, well, what have consumers purchased? And therefore, what do they actually want and what may they purchase next? So using this AI and predictive technology to really curate that customer's experience. The circular economy. Now, this is something that obviously has been around for a while. There's some predictions on by 2030, it will be one of the largest income streams in fashion. And we're seeing a lot of larger retailers get involved in the circular economy now. So it really is shifting the market. It's no longer just the space of op shops and car boot sales. We really are seeing it play across the board. Localization and community engagement. And this again was something that was really big in 2020 and 2021. And then when we were allowed to go back into the physical retail, consumers became less bothered about where those products had come from and where they were purchasing from. And we're seeing that again do a 180, that consumers are interested in their local environment, their localization, who those local retailers are, what products they're offering, and really creating these communities. Trend 8, the rise of decentralized search. So we can see it a lot now with the rise of voice searching, AI search, visual searches. So really changing the way that consumer shops. We know that consumers are much more educated. We know that they've researched prior to coming into store. It's around 95% of consumers now research before making a purchase. So this rise of decentralized search really has an impact given this higher level of research. We couldn't talk about the future trends of retail without the rise of AI and data analytics. So I think this is definitely something that we will touch on, and we've seen massive changes in this even since our previous white paper just in September. So there's been a lot of progressions there and great examples of retailers being ahead. As expected, data protection is something that has definitely come to the forefront this year. It's been talked about for a long time. We've seen it move through Europe. So it's of no surprise that this is now something that is becoming top of mind for consumers in Australia, and is something that retailers are really needing to address to really keep those consumers on side. Retail media, this was something that was a new trend in 2024. We were saying it's going to be big, and then I think no one could have predicted how big this trend was going to become. So there is this ongoing expectation of the growth of retail media and how retailers can actually get on board and utilize this. And finally, the invisible enemy in retail. So this is talking to the growth of these big international players that are coming in and really taking over that Australian retail landscape. And what does that mean for the future of retail, and how is that going to change it? So we're going to take you through each of these trends, show you some great statistics, and take you through some really good information and examples that we are seeing in the market. And more importantly, what to do about this. What do you need to be thinking about to keep ahead of these trends for the future?
Really good summary, Anastasia. And the human element in retail, you'll hear us talk about the fact that we're social by instinct, and time again, consumers tell us they want a consistent experience in a physical environment. And Anastasia, it's so interesting to see the insights where consumers are starting to differentiate between the type of services that they want.
That's correct. So a couple of years ago, we were seeing that consumers, they're wanting to come into the retail stores because they were wanting to engage with staff. Whereas now we're seeing that really just change depending on their day, their mood, their personalities. Some consumers want to engage more than others. And I think what really has changed here is they expect staff to be able to change and adapt to their needs. We see it through our Limbic Insights consumer personality profiling that different consumers want different type of engagements with staff. Some expect them to be the absolute experts and give them that product knowledge. Some expect them to actually build relationships and have these discussions that are less product focused and more lifestyle focused to really build rapport. So I think that need for a human element is there, but what retailers need to do now is train their staff to be able to adapt to the different consumers as they come through the store.
One of the other factors I'd add to that is this huge growth in researching online, purchasing offline. So physical retail is still on average 84% of the retail transactions nationally, but we see a far more educated, self-educated consumer. Something like over 85% of all bigger ticket items, for example, are pre-researched now. And so as a consequence, many consumers are more discerning about the type of experience. And the ability of the teams in the stores, coupled with great store design, is to enable the understanding of when to deliver this consistent service level. And as this points out, staff knowledge is critical. And so staff knowledge, and sitting within that is product knowledge, is absolutely vital to a successful and consistent sale. In all the mystery shopping we run through our Insights division, we see mystery shopping scores typically averaging between 60 to 70%. And where does it break down? Often in this confidence of knowing when to interact and at what point. So yeah, the human element is not going away soon.
And I think you make a great point about consumers, they've pre-researched, they're knowledgeable. So it's not as simple anymore to really just have these staff that know about the products and have that baseline understanding. We had a great example at the event yesterday of giving staff the tools to be able to take it that one step further in product knowledge, to give them something beyond what the consumers have researched online. I was understanding that staff might not have the ability to retain all that information. So what tools do we need to give them in the store environment? Is it VR? Is it handheld devices to really allow them to take that step above?
And this is where, click and collect, the wide range of product online, selected product in store, AI search agents and generation of information for store staff that make it all very accessible. And in fact, enables staff to have a much deeper breadth of information than they've ever had, as Anastasia points out.
So the second trend, value shopping, we're obviously very well aware of the cost of living crisis and how consumers really are looking at price and a lot more focused on price. And we can see this here, 76% of global consumers saying they're reducing discretionary spending, and 68% are saying they're switching to private label products. So we're really seeing this focus on price. However, one of the things that we are definitely seeing within our research is this broader value proposition and this value equation. And something we definitely saw a lot of towards the back end of 2024 was consumers that are willing to pay more if that value equation is right. And at top of the value equation recently has been that trust. They're willing to spend more with brands that they trust. So they really are leaning into this trust as part of that value equation. And now as we see the rise of these low-cost retailers as well, this value equation becomes more and more important. So how do we offer differentiation? How do we stand out in the market? So we're purely not just playing on the lowest price. Price is a hygiene factor. It's always going to be there. Consumers, regardless, will always check price first. As long as we have price that they are prepared to pay, what are these other value aspects? But one of the things that we have seen, and I mentioned shoptimism, so if you haven't heard me talk about shoptimism before, it's the concept of buying low value items to make yourself feel great. It was coined the lipstick effect as well. Basically buying these small items to make yourself happy, even though you're thinking you're having to cut costs everywhere else. Small value products, whether this is to really just get that dopamine hit And we've seen consumers really lean into this, particularly towards the last quarter of 2024, when we saw that discretionary spend on personal items really rise a little bit, as that cost of living crisis almost just became a bit of an annoyance to consumers. So this shoptimism aspect, particularly with the rate changes this week, I would expect that we will see this shoptimism rise quite a bit in 2025.
Definitely good to pick up on that neuroscientific perspective and the work we do with Limbic, the whole piece on the balanced stimulant response. Really, as you rightfully say, retail is giving these little retail therapy dopamine boosters that I like. It's shoptimism, and it's a term we've coined, and this is the reason. So something to think about in terms of retail merchandise mix and layout.
The next trend we touched on is advanced loyalty. And if anyone that heard us talk on our consumer loyalty white paper at the middle of last year, we're seeing that consumers are more loyal than ever before. So it's around 83% of consumers say that they're loyal to their preferred retailer. 2 in 3 actually say loyalty programs do influence their decision. So we've really seen consumers say, I'm interested in loyalty programs. I do want to engage in these loyalty programs. 27% saying, I actually spend more if I'm a member of a loyalty program. 45%, I will visit more often. However, there is expectations now that these loyalty programs are different. They are very much tailored and custom to the consumer's needs. And we know that consumers' needs really do vary. Some consumers are really looking for loyalty programs to build that connection with a brand. They want to feel part of the brand, part of the community. Other consumers are looking for loyalty programs to give them things that money can't buy. They're looking for loyalty programs that go above and beyond to really give them that surprise, delight, excitement. And then there are still the traditional loyalty programs where consumers do lean into that value equation. They're looking for loyalty programs to really give them discounts. But either way, it's not a one size fits all anymore. And we've really got to delve into those emotions and those drivers of consumers, as well as what is our differentiator? What is our brand? How does loyalty play a part into that?
Yeah, absolutely. The only quick thing I'd say there, of course, is that when you start to understand consumer personalities, the limbic model I touched on, you start to see how crucial that emotional connection to the brand, to be part of the tribe, how that really underpins the appropriate loyalty program. You know, for people who enjoy a challenge, it's very much challenge-based loyalty programs. This lovely photo here of the Mango store in Spain with an interactive sort of challenge loyalty program that you pick up on your device as you go around the store, versus more of the aspirational loyalty program. So loyalty as a straight out discount and nothing else is often just giving away margin.
So moving on to the next trend, this talks to the impatient consumer. And we've seen these consumers are more impatient than ever before. You'll have seen this in store where they're expecting everything to be there available immediately, the frustrations if products are not in stock, the immediacy. We've seen this really heightened expectation for quick and fast delivery. I was at a presentation last week, and I think it said 5 days is the limit. Consumers are not willing to wait more than 5 days. If it's anything longer, they will move on. So I think some of these nuances really are quite interesting to have a think about, well, where are we able to remove those friction points? So, 1 in 5 Australian consumers now have a subscription. And again, that helps them save time. They're shopping online because it's easier. They're really wanting to engage in all of these additional aspects that can help them save time. And that then builds that loyalty to this retail brand. If they can get fast delivery, frictionless returns, a really quick and simple one-stop online checkout experience, it does make all the difference to this consumer whose mindset is very different. They see retail in 2 boxes. It's either something that I have to do, therefore I want to do it quick, simple, easy, get it over and done with, or I really want to spend time and I want to enjoy my shopping and I want it to be an experience. But either way, these friction points and being able to have everything, this immediacy is really important. So it really is necessary for retailers to go back through that whole customer journey from the minute that they're aware of the brand right through to purchase and post-purchase to really understand where those friction points are. Are there areas of that journey that we may be inadvertently driving our customers away because it's just too difficult? And we see this more and more with obviously Gen Z, but unsurprisingly, all consumers now are saying that they want to save time, that they're too busy, they haven't got the time to spend. So we've really got to look at that with a different lens.
One of the other sides to this is from the retailer point of view, you know, with data assembled, a good loyalty program, and the appropriate product suite. Have we got a product or a range of products that enable them, lend themselves to some form of subscription offer? And the subscriptions, as Anastasia points out, are increasingly on the rise. We think of, you know, Netflix and the rest, but in reality, there's more and more product subscriptions coming through, and they produce good retail recurring or annuity revenue and make a lot of sense, and they drive a lot of customer loyalty when they're done particularly well. So one of the broad trends that we work with retailers on strategy is really thinking about, well, what are the recurring revenue streams available to you as a business? And subscription is one of them for some retailers.
Yeah, in our regular tracked consumer retailer sentiment, we have seen this rise of the physical product subscriptions. So it really is gaining more traction, getting more awareness, and gaining more requests from consumers. So the next trend is talking to subconscious commerce. So this is when we talk about utilizing big data, artificial intelligence to really improve and predict what consumers want next, to really understand, well, what can we give them, what products can we show them that's curated based on their previous behavior, or it might be what can we do to really improve that whole customer journey and make it very seamless without them having to even think about it and take action.
So, you know, we start to move into this area of subconscious commerce as a trend. We're talking about consumer pull effectively rather than product push. And so increasingly, as Anastasia says, that the marriage of big data, AI, neuroscience, the way we buy is being more deeply understood. For the small to medium retailer, for any retailer really, great business information system, good data sorted out and assembled in the right categorization, great approaches to an understanding of neuroscience, and of course, appropriate use of AI is starting to make these models very real, very solid, and we're seeing it increasingly. And no doubt we'll talk about Amazon, the Amazonian model of its Prime and AI and so forth, and its retail is the early nascent stages of subconscious commerce in many respects.
So I touched on circular shopping earlier, and we've really seen this trend explode in the last 12 months, maybe slightly longer, with really this growth of pre-loved markets. We've seen a lot of the international players entering the Australian market, so Depop, Vinted, ThredUp, all talking about how they're really engaging with these consumer segments. We can see it now, it says there now accounts for 3 to 5% of total clothes, footwear and accessories. However, we're definitely seeing this trajectory towards 2030 increase dramatically. So we are predicting that this will grow significantly. We've seen big fashion brands such as, I think, Gucci, Prada, and on the high street, Zara, H&M, really looking to get involved in this as well and offering pre-loved items from their brands, or in reverse, taking clothing items back. We know from The Iconic have launched this as well, where you can already say you're willing to resell the clothes back once you've worn them a few times. So it is becoming a lot more normal. It's moving away from just purely in that charity sector and moving really firmly into that main fashion area. So localization and community engagement. we've seen this actually come back in the last 12 months. It definitely was a trend that was very strong during COVID for the obvious reasons, and then seemed to die off. But we're now seeing around 1 in 3 consumers actually saying they want to support their local retailers. And we're also seeing more and more that they're looking for local products, Australian brands. And we are definitely seeing through this segment of consumers this real growth to want to engage with the local community, the local people. And it's becoming quite prevalent in all of the research that we do now. They want to feel like the retailer that they're purchasing from is committed to that community. Now, it's expressed in many different ways. It might be through community support, it might be through localization of shops, of products, it might be through participating in local marketing. It's coming to life through various different means, but we're seeing consumers really expecting even the bigger chains to actually localize to their local area and their community to really create a connection.
I think this has been one of the successes locally with the IGA strategy of curating ranges for local markets. And by 2028, 25% of all Australians will be 65 and over. I think there's a large increasing uncertainty in the global environment, and increasingly we're moving more and more globally to urbanized centres. All these factors contribute to this concept of nestling and cocooning, in particularly for older Australians. And I think those factors and others really drive this localization. So IGA and other examples, curated local ranges, building relationships. In some ways, we're back to the future again when it comes to this.
The next trend that we're looking at is this decentralized search. So we can see there we're really seeing the growth of the visual aspect. So Pinterest Lens, we've seen the launch of the Google Photo. We're seeing a lot more as well, audio search. So thinking about using Siri, AI to really have that voice search activated. So consumers are really engaging in many different ways. And I think one of the things that we're expecting to see moving forward is those smart retailers that can make sure that they are available across all of these different search platforms and really get ahead of that as consumers really do embrace them more and more.
Yeah, it's this interesting piece around moving from keyboard to voice to sort of sight and use of retinas and so forth. You know, some countries, China comes to mind, the capital cities, well advanced in this. So over time, expect to see traditional keyboards, text-based sort of searching start to be replaced. And then thinking about what that means in terms of in-store technology, what that can mean around, you know, retina screens that enable someone to see a fuller range, voice control that we're already seeing in basic AI at the moment. So, yeah, we're certainly going to see a lot more technology driving decentralized search.
And obviously the trend that we really do, we can't miss out of this list is AI and data analytics, and really seeing how that includes adding on that dynamic pricing. You know, we're already seeing the likes of Amazon being able to control the prices of their products globally through the use of this big data analytics. So we've seen AI come into retail in many various forms last year, and through our retailer sentiment, we also saw that it really is a priority, with 51% of retailers saying that it's going to be integrating is going to be crucial to really stay ahead of the game moving forward. And we've seen a lot of great examples of retailers utilizing AI now, whether it's purely through improving processes, improving efficiency, but we're also seeing some great ideas of retailers thinking outside the box. The image here was a physical store, I believe, in China, where it's using AI to change the visuals of the store depending on local factors, whether it's weather, whether it's local trends, and AI is being used to really create this engaging in-store environment. And I think there's a lot of examples out there now that retailers can lean to, even just in the last 2 or 3 months, to really make that start, you know, on this journey of AI. Those that are not thinking about it yet and not using it, we need to have a look at, well, who's doing it great, what's working around the world.
Yeah, and the thing I'd add to your comments, Anastasia, I think is defining exactly where AI plays a part in your strategy and deployment. Is it, as this touches on, around supply channel AI? Is it around pricing, CRM? And how does it apply, and how do you use it as a revenue generation, which is typically the way, or in many cases, increasing productivity? So yes, we're seeing investments in AI and automation, and even on the personal level, you start to look at the development of these AI agents, the Soras of this world, the ChatGPT generations, and you really see the power. And one of the key ways I think you do see the power, as touched on in this example, is in-store design, layout, visuals, graphics. Another, of course, is inventory modeling, right through to supply channel. So as it's doing across all societies, it's transforming retail as well.
And the next trend, trend 10 that we touch on, is data protection. And one of the things that we've seen here that has been quite an interesting shift is consumers' expectations around what they want to see from brands and retailers. So 42% of consumers are concerned about retailers' capacity to secure their personal information. And 31% are concerned about possible data breaches, which can be totally expected given what we've seen over the last 12 to 24 months with these big data breaches and brands. What we do see, though, which is quite surprising, is the younger generations are actually more likely to give their data out, but in return, they're expecting increased transparency. They want to know how it's going to be stored. They want to know how it's going to be used. They're more willing to give their data because they just want that easier life. So think about frictionless retail, think about the impatient consumer. If we can curate products, if we can make a greater experience for them, if we can save them time, they are willing to share their data. However, they're only going to give it over if they can really see how it's secure, how it's used, and what lengths retailers are going to protect it. So it really is about transparency in this trend of what are you doing and how are you sharing this information with your customers. Trend 11 is in retail media. So we've definitely seen this grow significantly in the last 12 months. We're estimating that it's going to generate around an additional $1 billion in revenue for the Australian retail industry. And we've seen a lot of the big retailers now moving into this space. Talks of Pet Barn, Chemist Warehouse, really bringing this on board to gain the products in front of those consumer eyes, and to gain that extra revenue streams. So not only is it creating revenue through advertising, it's creating additional product sales from that in-store marketing at the times when these consumers really are at the point of purchase.
Yeah, one of the points that we touched on earlier in strategy thinking is around what are the possible retail or revenue mixes for this organization that they mightn't have thought about and that technology enables. And so now we see retailers and work with retailers who start to think of themselves in a much broader way. So thinking about their retail shop business, if you like, thinking about the online piece and the integration of both of those parts. Retail media is obvious, and the point well made by Anastasia. Subscription, streaming, different ways of thinking about revenue mix, domestic, offshore, so forth. And so retail media is, I think, a really nice piece of capitalizing and maximizing the brand investment, but it also presents one of a few different retail revenues or revenue streams that we weren't thinking about a few years ago, but increasingly coming to the norm.
And finally, the invisible enemy. So this last 12 months really has seen the rise of Temu, Shein, and Amazon, these big international markets really taking over these retail sales. We've seen Temu attracting 3.8 million Australian shoppers in the previous years with annual sales around 1.7 billion. And we're predicting this will continue to grow and grow as they're putting large investment into the Australian market. We've seen the massive increase in Amazon. It's around 1 in 5, potentially slightly more now, Australians that actually have Amazon Prime membership and are purchasing frequently with Amazon. We've seen that in the increase in their distribution network, and they really are putting a lot of investment into the Australian market to really gain that market share, as we've seen them do across the globe through the US markets, UK markets, and then the similar markets to Australia like Canada and throughout Europe.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, I mean, if you sort of take Amazon as a case in point and all the growth that was pinpointed and shown and the work that's going on there, you know, they say there's about 1.5 million parcels arrive a day into Australia. You know, Amazon have their share of that. They'll do, as is touched on, pardon me, Amazon themselves do about 7 billion this year, which is extraordinary. Analysts at some of the meetings yesterday said that they're close to, the target is 20 billion within the next few years, which, you know, by 2028, they'll do about allegedly 20 billion or plan to. You know, that still by then will be about 470 billion as in terms of our country's revenue, if you like, for retail. So still not enormous, but obviously quickly growing. And certainly we think the fastest, if you like, direct-to-consumer retailer, and it's certainly in terms of turnover, be our the top retailer for general merchandise. If you live in the States, on average, a family in the US gets about 3 to 4 Amazon deliveries a week. We're currently at about 1 to 2. But the point about Amazon I do want to make, and it links back to this human experience, they don't to date have a track record of doing physical retail especially well. It's not their model. They're all about data, logistics, supply. And for them, 70% of their business is retail, 30% is web engine services. So they are exactly what they purport to be. And many of the trends that we see around the human experience, building great design in shops, experiential, building localized databases. Yes, we won't be building as many stores as we once did, but we'll go back to great flagship strategies. We'll build in the capabilities, but the differentiation to these engines sits in the human experience. Still do the hygiene factor as well, but it sits essentially in that human space. So there are plenty of retailers in the US that trade particularly well with a very strong and vigorous Amazon in the country. But as Anastasia points out, their growth is remarkable, particularly in that commoditized general merchandise range. Where we do see impact will be in sectors like supermarkets and that sort of value product. A fascinating trend to observe and to help our clients strategize with. And there are many sort of collegiate strategies where very well-known brands are partnering with the likes of Amazon against, which is that sharply human experience I've touched on.
And I think that is one of the sort of key points. What is that differentiator? What is that emotional and human connection? How do we take our consumers and create these communities so we're no longer purely playing on price? I touched on the value equation, and I think it is, how do we add value through our differentiation? We're seeing consumers lean a lot more into brand, and this is the time when brand becomes so much more important to really build that connection, that differentiation, and that trust with consumers. Yes, yesterday we had a panel speaking, and Amazon, they're touching on, needs to be part of that future strategy. It's potentially one spoke of the retail wheel, but the bigger play is how do we differentiate? So wrapping it up just there, we are sort of having a look at, well, what do we think's coming? We can see some of the trends are brand new, some of them have been around for a few years, but we don't really see them going anywhere. We're seeing consumers changing rapidly, and I think one of the key things that we do recommend is you need to be thinking about, well, where will our sector be in 2030? What do we think is going to change, whether it's through technology, products, anything else? But then also, who is your consumer? And if you can't answer that quite clearly, or if you're telling me your consumers are 25 to 35 5-year-old mom, well, that's too broad. That is very much where we were talking purely on demographics. We need to take it that level deeper. Who are our consumers? Why do they come to us? What do they want? What are their emotions? And really segment that further, because they are looking for that customized, personalized experience from us. As Brian's touched on quite nicely there, also looking at that bigger picture, thinking, well, where do these future revenue streams occur? Where else can we be playing? What leans into our brand to really be able to capitalize on some of these changes that we see coming downstream? Something that we haven't really talked about too much here is talking about employees, and a lot of these changes here will then actually change the way that the businesses are structured. Who do you need in your business to be able to stay ahead of these trends? What sort of training do we need to give to the teams to give them the skills to be able to work with, whether it's AI or more human engagement or more personalized communications with consumers? This does change the skill set, and this does change the need for our employees.
And, wrapping this up, this whole topic is, we're touching on about differentiation, but where can we innovate? Product innovation is an obvious part. Using technology for innovation. Where are our real abilities to innovate? What's defendable about us? What's scalable? What can competitors copy? And the other point here is, what's our capability? Are we ready for this? Have we got a well-aligned organization as touched on? What's our people strategy? All parts of the type of work that we cover in thinking about the future for our clients.
So thank you all for joining us today. If you would like some more information or would like to read these trends in more detail, you can access the white paper on retaildoctor.com.au. We have also recorded the session today, so we will be sharing a recording version of that. So if you do want to share with any colleagues or like to rewatch, then you're more than welcome to access the webinar recording. If there's anything we can assist you with, you want to get to know your consumers further, understand how we can build training programs to really get your staff to engage, or all aspects of building that future strategy for your business, don't hesitate to reach out.
And a quick call out to our global partners at ebeltoft.com, providing some really good insights and good information for us to sort of balance against what's happening domestically. So thanks, everybody. And Anastasia, thank you very much for today. And we look forward to the next one.
Great. Thanks, Brian.